all this structure we're setting up, there's a saying that goes, tension seeks resolution. And so the question you ask yourself is, how can I create the structure that leads to the resolution of the tension that I want? This is about leading others through your actions. As a business analyst, I lead people through a meeting by creating a structure that leads to the tension that leads to the resolution I want. As a person making goals for myself, I create a structure which creates the tension that leads to the resolution that I want. On and on and on. Relationships, anything you want. Okay, let's talk about it. So let's use a question or project as an example. So if the goal is fixed, it's known, then you're trying to figure out the solution. That's what's volatile. And if both the question and the answer are volatile, like last week in one of my meetings where I got upset because they didn't know the question and they didn't know the answer. So I said, well, then the first thing we do is figure out what's the question. Because there's nothing, you can't move forward. There's no tension without structure. So you have to create a structure for creating the tension. And you can actually build what's called advancing structures, where you create structures that keep tension moving forward. And an example of that is this presentation format here. So, or an Excel spreadsheet with rows. It is a structure meant for advancing structures. Okay, and you could do that in your own life too by setting up things like automatic payments of your bills or regular date nights with your wife. These are advancing structures. Okay. So when you have chaos and disorder, it's an indication that you have too many volatile items in the system. And so the solve for that is to start figuring out some fixed items. So if you're working on a project and everybody's like, I don't know what we're doing, it's because you don't have a clear enough goal lined up. There's not enough, something's not fixed in the future. Like, who knows the Bible verse, without vision, the people will perish. You know, Dave Ramsey quotes that all the time. But the idea is that you have to have some fixed goal that you're pointing to so that, you know, even if this is volatile, if this is fixed, at least you can drive towards it. Okay. But once everything is fixed and it's complete, there's nothing more volatile and you're just done. The project's done. And that's kind of like what heaven versus earth is. Some people say that, like, in the spiritual realm, everything is fixed. On earth, everything is volatile. And so in order to improve ourselves, build our characters, we have to go from somewhere that's fixed to somewhere that's volatile in order to do the project that is improving ourselves, because everything is fixed in heaven. Okay. I had a coach tell me one time that the body, ego, and spirit all have two goals, and one of the goals is related to structure, the other one's related to novelty, which is just another way of saying structure, volatile and fixed. So structure would be fixed, novelty would be volatile. In order to feel good in life, you can't have everything known. Like, if you could see the future, you would be completely bored. You need the novelty of not knowing what's going on. If you're about ready to, you know, be with your wife for the night, you want to have a little bit of will we or won't we. It can't be like, we're going to do it on this time, because that's boring. It needs to be a little bit of novelty, is what I'm saying. So let's get into relationship stuff a little bit. The first marriage, this is just my saying, but that first marriage is with yourself. Because the very first thing you do is, as a zygote, is you split into two parts. And you just keep becoming two halves, and you're always two halves. You've got, you know, right side, the left brain, the right brain. And, well, as we'll get into it, even the way that the brains work are structure and volatility, or One's novel, one's, left brain, right brain. One creates the question, the other fills out the answer. So this is where some people start to talk about the masculine frame and the feminine frame. These are just labels. It doesn't necessarily mean man or woman. It's just that men tend to use their left brain more, the structured side, whereas women tend to use their right brain more, their creative side, their emotional side. So that's why sometimes when you argue with a man, he's arguing with logic. When you're arguing with a woman, she's arguing with emotion sometimes. And when you argue with emotion, things don't necessarily have to be true. They're fluid. They might be true now, they might not be true a minute later. But once you kind of understand that, then you understand the role that you can bring to when the woman is fluid, you just add more structure. She needs the structure to be fluid. If you're fluid and she's fluid, that leads to anxiety. Right? There's too many volatile items in the equation, and so the emotional distress goes up. And this doesn't even have to be man and woman. It could just be people at work, coworkers. When you're dealing with another woman at work, realize that she's operating in her head a different way than you're operating. If you're talking to a man, even men need to have structure to work because men are human too. If you remember that slide about the ego, the body wants structure and it wants novelty. And we have both the feminine and masculine in our brain too, so we need it too. If I show up to a meeting and I'm sitting there and 45 minutes later, I still don't know what the guy's talking about, then I'm going to be in emotional distress because I'm like, what are we doing? There's not enough fixed items. There's not enough structure. I don't know where we're headed. One of these has to be fixed. Stop it. And that's where people's hands go up and you get the people saying, I still don't know what we're talking about. Oh, that's because someone hasn't done a good enough job of making things fixed. Jason, have you ever experienced that?
I have experienced
So
4 meetings going. Meetings not going well. All right. Well, yesterday I've been in a lot of meetings. So
yeah. So one of the things when I was talking to Jason about this last time, we discovered that when he was my manager, he would give me both of these things. As a man, he was so structured that he would be like, here's the solution, here's the question I have, and here's the answer I want. And it was more about figuring out how. There was a secondary structure underneath this, which was, okay, now that I know that I have to do this, what's the question answer to do that? So that could be a style, Dan, you use with your people as well. You can give them more fixed items so that they have less. You can think of it like subtasks. So they're not figuring out the big thing, they're figuring out just the small things. And you do that too with your team, right? Yep. Okay. So what I'm really describing is how to use those concepts and tools to create a balance of structure and volatility in order to get things done. So as a business analyst, I create structure to allow for creativity in my relationships. Or how I lead myself, I create a vision for the future and then work towards it. And I've got tools to do that, which I can show you. Trello, spreadsheets, calendars. But what I found is, and what others have found, is that you are 3 times more likely to accomplish a goal if it's even just written down in like a 3-step or 5-step list. Because there's something about, people say, oh, it's because you wrote it down. It's because you created a structure. You created a structure that supported it, because until you write it down, it's volatile. And all you're doing is making it fixed, which reduces emotional anxiety and allows you to advance. Okay.
Question.
Yeah.
I don't know
I'll phrase this exactly right. But the answer to the goal can change though. So given environments, I mean, so then your structure's got to adapt to that, or you toss up, like then you say, all right, well, this one didn't work, we throw out and let's try this something else. This project is not going well for XYZ because the goal is the same, but the structure, how do you account for that kind of?
Let's use the bookshelf analogy. If you create the bookshelf, you put a book on it, and then you test the book. You realize that's not the right book. You take the bookshelf book off, put a different book on the bookshelf. But because you have the bookshelf, you can do that test. So, in the scientific method, who knows the scientific method? Okay. It's hypothesize, test, review. Essentially, that's the short of it. So what I had a professor told me one time was STARE, which is an acronym for state the problem, tools, what tools you have available. A is algorithm, like what's your process for filling it out. I is actually do it, integrate or whatever, implement. And then R is review. So it's just more steps to the same thing. So the reason why I bring that up is because you hypothesized it would work. You tried it, it didn't work, so then you just loop back and you try it again. But because you have the structure to do that test, you're able to know if it's right or wrong. So what the 4-year U does is it sets up a system or structure or a masculine frame, whatever words you want to use for it, which has tools that advance that structure forward to create the tension that leads to results you want. Because if you've got regular check-ins with yourself, if you got a place to put that stuff, if you got a structure for doing it, it's just going to lead to, that structure is going to lead to the result you want. You're essentially setting yourself up for success. And as a person who's just going through life, like no one is going to do it for you. Like no one, your mom's not going to just come in and set you down and say, hey, let's talk about the goals for your life. You don't have a guidance counselor. You don't have an upperclassman. You may have a best friend, but that's what the 4-year U is that guidance counselor, an upperclassman, or your mom who comes in and is just like, all right, let's talk about what do you want to do? You're going to live your life. Time is going to pass. As long as you're alive, time is going to pass. So you can either be intentional with it or not. Let's be intentional by creating a structure for how to live your life. And you did it in 4 years in high school, you did it 4 years in college. Let's just keep going the rest of your life. 4-year increments. Let's just plan it out, work it. Plan it out, work it. It's not about work, it's about being intentional about what you want in your life. So that's the 4-year U.